Peace Airlines chairman Allen Onyema distances himself from lawsuits against President Buhari over his U.S. indictment. Congress of University Academics breaks with the Academic Staff Union of Universities ASU over IPPIS. Konwa supports federal government. On the international front, Bangladesh sentences 7 to death for 2016 cafe attack. And in sports, Matchroom releases images inside the 15,000-seater stadium set to host Anthony Joshua's rematch with Andy Ruiz Jr.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. An Abuja-based lawyer has filed a lawsuit against the Attorney General of the Federation over U.S. indictments of Air Peace Chairman Allen Onyema. The lawyers, John Mary Gideobi's lawsuit is over an alleged move to extradite Onyema. He has requested an order of the court to restrain any federal government agency from extraditing Onyema. Onyema's lawyers have said on Wednesday, not so fast. They have made clear their client Onyema had nothing to do with the lawsuit. They also said Onyema had no knowledge of the action and did not consent to the filing of the case. They said Onyema does not even know Gideobi. The U.S. Department of Justice said last week Onyema opened several personal and business bank accounts in Atlanta, Georgia. The department says about $45 million was allegedly transferred into his Atlanta-based account from foreign sources between 2010 and 2018. The DOJ said more than $3 million of funds Onyema used in buying multiple aircrafts from Springfield Aviation Company registered in Georgia allegedly came from bank accounts for Foundation for Ethnic Harmony, International Center for Nonviolence and Peace Development, All Time Peace Media Communications Limited, and Every Child Limited. The DOJ also said Springfield Aviation happens to be owned by Onyema and was being managed by someone with no connection to the aviation business. The DOJ also accused Air Peace Financial Director Ejioge Egaha as a participant in the scheme. The Justice Department said Egaha was directing the Springfield Aviation manager to sign and send false documents to banks and was even using the manager's identity to further the alleged fraud, during which more than $16 million of the proceeds of the alleged fraud were transferred to other accounts. Onyema is charged with 1 count of conspiracy to commit bank fraud, 3 counts of bank fraud, 1 count of conspiracy to commit credit card application fraud, and 3 counts of credit application fraud. He is also charged with 27 counts of money laundering. Egaha is charged with 1 count of aggravated identity theft. There is a rift between the Congress of University Academics, CONUA, and the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, over policies on the Integrated Payroll and Personal Information System. CONUA says the government stands while APC does not. CONUA has directed university lecturers to comply with the federal government's directive to register on the IPPIS. The National Publicity Coordinator of CONUA, Dr. Nwoke Onyebuchi, gave the counter-directive at a meeting by members of CONUA in Port Harcourt on Tuesday. CONUA is a faction of ASU. ASU had rejected the federal government's directive mandating workers at its universities and colleges of education. ASU had rejected the federal government's directive mandating workers at its universities and colleges of education to enroll into IPPIS before December the 7th. But Onyebuchi said rather than wait for a new template, IPPIS scheme would improve the academic system in the nation's tertiary institutions. Onyebuchi said statements credited to ASU that sabbatical payment was not captured in the new payroll system was untrue. He also said the claims are unfounded that the scheme would expose universities to civil service. The faction leaders also said the scheme would eliminate ghost workers and reduce fraudulent activities in the academic system if properly implemented. Now, churches and mosques in Lagos State must brace up for a new Lagos State directive that would require them to be registered in 2020. The state says there is need to ensure sanity in the state among the churches and mosques. Ministry of Home Affairs Commissioner Huzamat Akibele Yusuf announced this on Tuesday in Ikeja during a stakeholders meeting with the Nigeria Interreligious Council. She said having a database of all religious bodies in the state would enable ease of reference as well as ensuring effective communication. She said Lagos needs to know how many churches and mosques are operating in the state. Akibele Yusuf says the exercise was to have easy access to churches and mosques so they would be able to benefit from government programs. She said that the Ministry of Home Affairs, along with the Ministry of the Environment and Water Resources through the Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency, would work to eradicate noise pollution that comes from places of worship. The issue of Ruga settlements is aggravating the people of Isokoma in Onitsha local government area of Ebonyi State. They're raising an alarm over allegations that their land is being forcefully acquired for the controversial Grayson project. In a communique issued after a meeting of Indi in Sokoma in diaspora held in Enugu, the community has vowed to resist every attempt to convert their ancestral land for the purpose of the Ruga settlement. The communique says Ebonyi government has plans to set up a Ruga colony and is allegedly forcefully taking over 10,000 hectares of land it purportedly packaged for a Ruga project under the guise of an agricultural project. The communique further states that Isokoma land is available for any genuine project and not the one allegedly surrounded with controversy, secrecy, and suspicions. Well, Zamfara State former governors, House speakers, and deputies may not again receive pension payments and other entitlements as the State House of Assembly has repealed a law that previously guaranteed these benefits and allowances. Zamfara Assembly's Public Relations Officer, Mustafa Jafaru Cairo, said in a statement that the new law would eradicate what he called the jamboree pay former state political leaders had enjoyed to the detriment of retired civil servants who have been owed years of entitlements. A House member said past leaders were collecting more than 7 billion naira annually, which he said the state economy cannot accommodate. Members voted to abolish the old law, saying it was detrimental to the socio-economic well-being of the people of Zamfara. The bill has been sent to the governor for his assent. State House of Assembly spokesperson Mustafa Jafaru Cairo said all past political leaders in Zamfara states will no longer enjoy any entitlements except those prescribed by National Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission. The Ladoke Akintola University of Technology, LAUTECH in Ogbomoso, Oyo State, is receiving $500 million naira subvention from the state to cater for workforce demands. The infusion was approved by Governor Seyi Makinde, who said the state would devote 1/5 of its budget to education next year. He tacked on a condition to the funding that the school submits a written agreement to his office on how it plans to disburse the money. Makinde says it would inaugurate a committee in the states that will work with its Osun State counterparts on how to resolve the university's crisis. He said one of his election promises would be fulfilled and to find a lasting solution to the LAUTECH crisis. The institution is jointly owned by Oyo and Osun States. Coming up, African stories. Zimbabwe senior doctors join ongoing junior doctor strike. And later, international news. Bangladesh sentences 7 to death for 2016 cafe attack.
Dear mommy, you went out that night with the baby in your tummy, but you did not come back. The baby is very fine and she eats and sleeps a lot. Everyone says that you are in a better place, but I miss you so much. I keep asking them, where is the better place? But nobody answers me. Auntie Carrie just hugs me and says, go and play. Mommy, I miss you. Please, when are you coming home?
I still do miss you, Mom. And in honor of your memory, I'm a doctor today working with the MTN Foundation to save mothers and children every day.
Ending mother and child mortality in Nigeria is dear to us. We will keep strengthening this most important bond just for you.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to African stories. Senior doctors in Zimbabwe have joined an ongoing medical workers' strike that started with junior doctors months ago in disputes over pay. Striking junior doctors, hundreds of them were then sacked by the government. Now, in protest against that government action, senior doctors have downed to Zenanga. Nurses have also been on strike, demanding a living wage. The Senior Doctors Association says it will stop all emergency services until the junior colleagues have been reinstated. More than 400 junior doctors were fired after withdrawing their services. They are demanding a 500% salary increase as a cushion against triple-digit inflation. Many patients have been turned away. Some were reportedly sent home to die. Droughts have become more commonplace in South Africa in recent years. In the past 2 decades since 1990, 12 of those years were defined as drier years compared to only 7 years in the previous 2 decades. These droughts are associated with climate change, which is the effect of human behavior on the planet's temperature. The droughts are now affecting food supply in the country. Reporter Subitra Indu has the story.
South Africa has had some good rain in recent weeks and dams are replenishing slowly.
We have enough food supplies, at least from now up until April 2020. We harvested just north of 11 million tons. We still had sufficient maize to be net exporters. We're actually going to be exporting about 1.1 million tons of maize so far. Regardless of a decline in planting that we have seen, we still produce more than we consume, and we had sufficient stocks to help us go forward.
But in just under 6 months, those grain supplies could run out. The rains came late, delaying the summer planting season for 2020, which means the next harvest will be off schedule.
But now from April 2020 going on into 2021, that's where the concern is going to be. Production could decline, but that won't necessarily take us out of the export markets. And in line with the consumer side, I think that from now up until at least the end of this year, going on into April next year, I don't expect a notable increase even on a consumer price inflation. You think about the first 9 months of this year, for example, when you look at South Africa's food price inflation, it averages at about 2.9%. For the year, we think it would average at levels less than 3.4%.
Agricultural output has declined due to drought conditions in parts of the country near Lesotho and Namibia. Further up in Zambia, drought conditions are persisting. UN agencies have already warned that over 45 million people in southern Africa face severe food shortages in the next 6 months.
Anytime that you have an adverse weather condition and it affects the market, what happens is the demand of the product remains the same. Okay. But when the supply, in other words, the farmers can't produce more, the price will go up. So when the farmers have got good weather conditions and they've got a lot of supply, they can supply the markets, therefore the price will come down.
Food inflation in South Africa has declined significantly over the last year, but this could very quickly change should the next harvest be insufficient. Environmental organizations have also warned that food security is at risk unless South Africa changes and corrects its unsustainable practices.
Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba Group has signed a memorandum of understanding with Ethiopia for the creation of an electronic world trade platform. The deal will see the East African nation become the gateway for Africa to join globalization by e-commerce platforms, which will inspire the whole Africa to grasp the opportunities of the digital economy. The signing of the MOU happened in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, and was witnessed by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and Alibaba founder Jack Ma. Reporter Gurum Charlotte spoke to Jack Ma in Addis Ababa.
Jack Ma arrived in Addis Ababa on Sunday night and was welcomed by his host, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed himself. On Monday, the two have started their day by visiting this ICT park of Ethiopia. Then saw the signing of 4 agreements on areas of tech investment and entrepreneurship.
Digital technology is rapidly developing in diverse fields, including mobile communication, robotics, artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, and 3D printing. With appropriate policy, developing countries stand to benefit tremendously in this new era.
Jack Ma also has announced his company's plan of making Addis Ababa a hub for an electronic world trade platform, also known as EWTP.
In the past, Africa was considered only the place for selling raw materials. And we think today, Africa joined the globalization, joined the formulation of the new model of the trade. And we believe Africa should and will be the driver of the new globalization. In the past, globalization was driven by Europe and America. Today, the new formation of the trade is going to start from developed countries, a country with strong leadership like Ethiopia.
Coffee is #1 product. We want to export it. How will EWT assist farmers and others to export coffee from Ethiopia?
You have a great product, but what Ethiopians should do is to change the way of selling coffees. We should sell the coffee directly to millions and millions of consumers directly. In the older days, you sent the coffee through the containers. In the future, any consumer anywhere in the world, they can buy, when they think about Ethiopian coffee, they buy online using the mobile phone, and it can be delivered to them in 72 hours or less. And then the farmers will be happy, consumer will be happy, less distributors, the middle one, the cut will be small.
Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed promised Ma his new plan in Ethiopia will be successful.
Ethiopia, with Jack Ma and Alibaba, will make the vision reality. As I promised for Jack this morning, I will be a project manager of Alibaba investment in Ethiopia. I will be a salesman for the continent.
Back at the Grand Palace, Prime Minister Abiy has toured Jack Ma, the new Unity Park. On his address, Jack Ma has also announced the money dedicated for supporting entrepreneurs in Africa has risen from $10 million to $100 million. Analysts say the direct investment of Jack Ma in Ethiopia or Africa will create more jobs and help nations grow faster.
When we return, international news. 7 sentenced to death in Bangladesh for 2016 cafe attack. And later, sports. Matchroom releases images inside the 15,000-seater stadium set to host Anthony Joshua's rematch with Andy Ruiz Jr. Welcome back. This is ANN News. In international stories, 7 Islamists have been sentenced to death for a 2016 attack on a cafe in the Bangladeshi capital in which 22 people were killed. The attack was carried out by a group of 5 men who took diners hostage at the cafe. The 12-hour siege was described as the deadliest terrorist attack in Bangladesh. Most of the victims were Italian and Japanese. The attack was claimed by the Islamic State group, but Bangladesh disputed this, instead holding a local militant group responsible. Since the attack, Bangladesh authorities have led a brutal crackdown on militants seized as a destabilizing force in the predominantly Muslim country. A defense lawyer says the 7 men would appeal. Death sentences in Bangladesh are carried out by hanging. The U.S. State Department and the Pentagon are sending teams to the United States, Emirates and Saudi Arabia to investigate CNN's findings. The American-made weaponry were transferred to rebel fighters and separatist militia in Yemen. In a letter obtained by CNN, the State Department says the continued insufficient responses of both U.S. allies have delayed the probe, which was launched in response to CNN's reporting earlier this year. The news organization's ongoing investigations has found that American-made armored vehicles known as mal-resistant ambush-protected vehicles, which are sold to United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, have been transferred to groups including Al-Qaeda-linked fighters, Iranian-backed rebels and separatist militias in violation of their agreement with Washington. These factions have since turned them against the internationally recognized Yemen government forces, which the U.S. supports. Chinese and European Union officials have agreed to oppose unilateralism and trade protectionism during talks on a bilateral investment agreement. It took a swipe at U.S. President Donald Trump's campaign of punitive tariffs. But a top EU official made it clear that Europe is not fully on the same page with China. He called on Beijing to do more to make market access fairer and reduce overcapacity in steel and other sectors, including high-tech.
The fight against protectionism is gaining major momentum at the annual China-EU dialogue. Participants there widely agree it will take strong leadership from their countries. The joint statement from this year's dialogue for CEO and former senior officials says China and Europe should take leading roles in resisting protectionism by demonstrating reciprocal benefits through economic openness.
This is true in economy, with protectionism coming back in trade and investment. Since 2017, the US decision to increase tariffs on Europe and China has seriously impacted global growth, with a cut of $700 billion by 2020.
The former Prime Minister of France stresses the way out is to pursue the model of trust, openness and mutual profits, while Chinese host says both sides have confidence in reaching the bilateral investment treaty next year.
We have many cooperation opportunity in many fields, such like the digital economy, such like the cooperation in the Belt and Road construction, and of course for the many traditional sectors, such like the agricultural manufacturing industry, we also had great potential either for the investment or the trade and other kind of cooperation.
Both sides also look to better their business environments for growing trade and investment. That echoes China's fresh regulation in October, aiming to attract more foreign investment with improved financial services and trade policies.
I think it is very important that China makes these efforts, shows that China is serious about improving the business environment, about improving also in particular the conditions for foreign firms to be active in China. I think there are areas of concern on the European side, but the best way of addressing those is through dialogue such as this one.
And WTO reforms are also high on the China-EU agenda.
Participants of both sides agree that next year is very important years. We need to work together to promote the WTO reform. Both sides agree that there need to have reform to dealing with the new developments, such like the e-commerce, the digital economy, and the rule of the data across the border controls.
The dialogue comes amid the fourth industrial revolution, advocating that both sides should oppose digital protectionism and cooperate intensively on cybersecurity issues.
Up next, sports. Matchroom releases images inside the 15,000-seater stadium set to host Anthony Joshua's rematch with Andy Ruiz Jr. Please stay with us. Matchroom have released new images inside the 15,000-seater stadium that is set to host Anthony Joshua rematch with Andy Ruiz Jr. in Saudi Arabia. The two heavyweight giants step back in the ring on December the 7th. The 15,000-seater stadium will play host to the clash. Anthony Joshua lost his 4 title belts to the Mexican in an extraordinary bout back in June. The Diriyah Arena in Saudi Arabia is in the heart of the UNESCO World Heritage Site, known as the home of heroes and kings. That is CNN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV.